This episode all started with a LinkedIn comment. I posted about a room that holds 130 people, and it does. If hold means wall-to-wall chairs and nothing else. No screens, no front of house, no aisles, no accessibility, and no reality. And then the on-site team gets handed the impossible room, and everyone's mad at each other as we try to fix it.
So our guest of the day added the comment, which is the other side of the insanity that we're discussing. When you reference the hotel's own website capacity, you hear from the sales rep that they say that's wrong. Don't trust that number. Today, we're not going to bash the hotel, though. We're going to talk about standards and solutions. The planner isn't wrong for trusting that number. The failure is treating a theoretical number like a production-ready truth. But before we dive into that, here comes the rain.
Welcome to the podcast. We have Shanondoah Nicholson on Sideways Rain today. You've been in corporate events for 15 plus years. You also host your own podcast called Beyond the BEO, which we'll link in the description at the end here. And you're one of the clearest voices out there for planners who want reality and respect in meetings and events. So for those not familiar with you, Shanondoah, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So thank you so much for having me on. As you mentioned, I'm a corporate event planner with over 15 years in the industry, mostly on the tech side, a little bit of financial services. Until last year, I've been working in-house on marketing teams, executing events, and then last spring made the leap to freelancing full-time. And Beyond the BEO is my fun podcast baby that I've had for a few years now, and it's really been great to use it to meet folks like yourself and other people within the industry.
Yeah, we were talking a little before we started recording here, and I checked out some of your stuff. Really great content. So for y'all listening, check out Shanondoah's podcast. I was really interested in the accessibility episode that you had recently. It's something certainly I think everybody should listen to. So back to our format. We typically, we're Sideways Rain, so we do the storm, the umbrella, and the clear skies moment. We did a little pre-work on this. We'll certainly get to the hotel capacity stuff, but you got hit with a layoff during a major industry disruption. Let's, call it what it is, COVID. Give us the human version, not the headline. What happened?
Yeah, for sure. So I've been working in financial services. 2020 hits. Obviously, our team started calling ourselves the cancellation department because that's felt like all we were doing. Mustered through making some events virtual, working on different projects within the organization. And then in January of 2021, was officially reduced from the team. I was basically the only planner left on the team at that point. And had to decide, okay, am I going to try to stay in this industry? Is this ever going to come back? I know that for us in Canada, specifically Toronto, we were locked down for much longer than maybe where some of your listeners are listening in from. And at that time took a contract doing more general marketing, bit of virtual events, but realized, no, this is going to come back. People need to meet in person. This is actually just reinforcing how much, yes, digital is great and virtual is great, but in person is really where it's at. And kind of stuck through it. And, I have a friend in the industry, shout out to Evan Babbins, another big voice on LinkedIn, who says, the people that made it through that time are just built differently. We are committed to the industry. And no disrespect to people who left the industry during that time. Everybody has to make the choices that are right for them. But we definitely are a resilient set of folks. If you were, planning events in 2019, it still continues to do it in 2026.
That's for sure.
Most definitely. And we have a lot in common because I went through something similar during that time as well. I went through a layoff, and like you said, you have to be built different to get through that. My question to you is, what was the hardest moment or hardest part of going through that in real time? I know a lot of us had been job secured in this industry for so many years because there's always events happening. And then all of a sudden that stops. What was the hardest part for you and how'd you get through it?
Yeah, I think like at that point, it was interesting because I had taken that job at a big insurance company thinking it was the safe bet. So I actually had an offer from a marketing agency and the insurance company on the same day in 2018. And, decided I want the safe place, right? And so I think that was the biggest kind of rug pulled out. And I like as the layoff approached, like I could tell something was shifting in the team, priorities were changing like throughout like the greater department. So like I felt something was changing, but I think kind of that was the wake up call of nothing is safe. And, in times after that, when I've had to look for work, I remember saying to my mom, like, I don't know where I'm going to go next. And she's like, yeah, like, it used to be that you'd go work at a bank or in like a big CPG or whatever the case is, a big accounting firm, and that would be your ticket for years. And like my grandmother still cannot understand how I've had so many jobs because she worked for the federal government for 50 years and like that's what people did. Mm-hmm. And she just can't fathom that me changing jobs or losing my job is not like a mark on, when I'm interviewing and things like that. So I think like that was the wake up call of nothing is safe and nothing is going to look out for you but you. And I think that was kind of the hardest part, but also a little freeing at the same time.
Yeah, I want to dial in on something you talked about. Pandemic started officially here in the US, I guess, March of 2020. Your layoff doesn't come till early 2021. In that period of time, a lot of folks did leave the industry and they actually left after that as well. And then as things came rushing back, we have an influx of new blood, if you will, in that space. And this kind of connects to the comment and the post on LinkedIn around industry knowledge. And what I was finding prior to pandemic is a lot of planners were leaning on just tribal knowledge and things that they know and their own sort of mental head game to get things done. But it turns out that wasn't a sustainable strategy when you have masses leaving all at one time, and now you have to train in a new group of people. So what are you seeing in the industry for us, like sort of hard-nosed folks that made it through? How are we transferring that knowledge to the folks coming in the industry so they feel supported? What are you seeing out there?
I'm seeing a lot more community. Associations have always existed and they still serve their role, but there's a lot of people that I've met through various Slack communities. I know that there are some communities that are not association based. And I think that the opening up of those communities and finding people that you can throw a Slack message and say, hey, I'm looking for this kind of vendor in this city. Who do you have? Which used to be much more like just on Google searches. So I think that, we are learning and we're happy and excited to share the great people that we work with, right? Like if you have a vendor that gets things done, then you're so happy to recommend them. So I think what I've seen, and especially since starting my podcast and expanding my network that way, it's that we are a community of people and we're a people-based industry and we are supporting each other by sharing that knowledge. And we've expanded how we can do that beyond our cities, because I know like until I went freelance, I hadn't planned an event in Toronto, or maybe had done like one or two in the 5 years since lockdown. So I don't really know the industry or the vendors in this area as well as I did in 2019. And obviously a lot of them have changed. So I think having that community that I can kind of pull on anywhere in North America and even in Europe to say, I need help here, and then get responses really quickly from people that I know, okay, you've used them, that they show up, that like things are going to go well if you're hiring them.
For sure.
Most definitely. And that community is steadily growing, especially as technology grows, like, and the implementation of AI and all of these new platforms that are coming out to help the industry forward. I'm curious, outside of LinkedIn, are there any other platforms that you highly recommend or you see a lot of value in in connecting you as a community and helping foster those relationships that are able to allow you to plan those events and have those meaningful connections. Is there any other platform outside of LinkedIn that you're using?
Yeah, I'm using Slack like very heavily, which I would never have expected to. Through the Events Professional Network that's run by Lisa Gregory, the Vendry network, they're free Slack channels that I've connected with so many folks there. I have a lot of great connections also on Instagram, it's just a different like vibe a little bit than LinkedIn, right? Different medium, you're seeing things differently. But Slack, I think, has been a game changer in event community and in like just real time, like having those conversations and like quickly getting responses that you're not fighting with an algorithm. You're not seeing things 3 weeks later. Like you're getting real time communication in those places.
Yeah, I love that. It's sort of what Slack's built for. And in the LinkedIn environment, as you see a lot, you might see a little bit of conversation related to posts, but it's all sort of self-serving and the conversation stops relatively quickly. I love what you're talking about community, and it's especially interesting because it's people across different organizations in the same industry, but that's got to create some sort of cognitive dissonance when you're not treated the same way in the organization you were in, right? So you have this amazing community outside of your organization, but then when COVID hits, you're just a number and you're just a number on a balance sheet. So how do you reconcile those two things? And I guess going freelance helps, but how do you reconcile those two things in the work that you do?
Yeah, I think, I've worked in a number of tech organizations that, even after COVID had great booms and busts, right? Funding was all of a sudden there and then all of a sudden it wasn't. And I think that when I was working in specifically tech and talking to people, it's that you have to be doing the good work for you. And like, yes, you might get accolades from where you work. Maybe you get awards, maybe you get a bonus, maybe you get like a Slack message that says job well done. But ultimately, and, kind of alluded to it earlier of like, you're your own team as well. And you have to be doing it because you know that you derive joy and satisfaction from a job well done. And if you're just looking for that external reinforcement, you might be lucky enough to work on a team that does it very well, but oftentimes that's not the case. And also, even if it is, and at the end of the day, you are still the number on the spreadsheet. And if cuts have to be made, cuts have to be made. And the work that you do is often not a reflection of being cut from an organization. And so you need to know that like you did it for you, or you did it for your clients, or you did it for someone else besides just your organization.
A bigger self-purpose, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to add on to that, I know making a decision to go freelance is not a light decision. That's a big change, especially coming from being that number in a large organization where there's processes in place. You're used to how things work. You have resources. When you go freelance, it's kind of all on you. So can you walk us through your mindset when you made that decision and how you knew in that moment that it was something that you wanted to take a gamble on?
Yeah, sure. So I think, for me, again, had been working in tech a long time. And I feel like those who know it well, right? Like I know people who get laid off, find a new role, and then a few months later are laid off again. And it's just like this cycle. So for me, I was working in an organization, again, since something was changing, there ended up being a big acquisition. The company restructured several times. And kind of when things were at its peak crazy of like, if anyone has experienced an acquisition one way or the other, it is a lot of turmoil. And started thinking, and my husband's an entrepreneur and he had been telling me for years that I should be working for myself. And I said, no, I can't do that. But it was like this little voice at the back of my head of like, put the money away, like start saving, like, just have it there in case you decide to pull the trigger. And the company restructured following the acquisition and my role was eliminated last spring. And it was kind of this moment of, well, if I don't do it now, I'll never do it. Like I could go and get another job and had already started applying and was already interviewing, and I was like, if I don't do it now, I will literally never do it. I will get back into the same cycle of getting another job, probably ending up here another 2-3 years after, whatever next big thing happens in an organization. And so I think it was if not now, then when. And, even when my husband went out as an entrepreneur in 2019, I said to him at the time, like, the worst thing that happens is you go get another job, right? So like you've tested out, and if it doesn't work, if you're not making money, you go get another job. And like that's not a failure. That's not, that's just trying something else, right? And so I think for me, that was always at the back of my mind of, well, I'll just go get another job. And if I have to do that, then I have to do that. But like no one, and he also always says, like, no one's gonna bet on you like you're gonna bet on yourself, right? Like you're all you've got, like I said. And so, and it was time. It was kind of time.
Man, a partner that's in your corner can help a ton, because in the end you can just say, no matter what, we have each other, which is sort of an amazing thing and a blessing.
Yeah.
We talk a little bit as we get into the umbrella moment. We don't know each other well, but I sense you're doing all the right things to succeed in a freelance space, because I'm a big believer of you get what you give. And I sense that you're giving a lot in the industry, and that'll come back to you, or probably already does come back to you. So let's give something to the viewers here. You mentioned in the pre-work, you had a line in there that struck me. It said, keep your bag packed. For folks out there right now, maybe feeling some turmoil or feeling that they're not valued, how can you give them some advice or some resilience? What could they actually do now?
Yeah. So like I said in the pre-work, like my line is, you always have to have a bag packed.
Yeah.
That you never know what's going to happen, that circumstances change. Sometimes you can foresee them, sometimes you can't. If you had have asked me in February 2020 if I thought we were going to cancel everything in a few weeks, like the fact that we're now approaching 6 years since those lockdowns seems like insane. And I think having a bag pack to me means having an updated resume, having an active network. Don't be the person that's only calling when you need something, right? Like you mentioned, giving and getting, like that corporate karma, I think really exists. Like even today I had a call with someone who was presenting something in a couple of weeks and just was like, I just want to bounce some ideas off of you. And at the end of the call, they said, I don't know how I can repay you for this. And I said, you know what, just go do something nice for someone else. Like if someone else needs a favor, just return that favor, pay it forward, kind of thing, right?
Love that.
So I think you want your network to like always know who you are. Like you should not, if you are laid off, tomorrow, and you start reaching out to people and saying, I'm now looking for a new job, but you don't have your updated resume, but you don't have like your portfolio together, like whatever it is. And like, you need to make it easy for people. Like you need to make it easy for them to know who you are, what you do, right? So like, take the couple minutes every few months to say, oh yeah, let me add that award, or, oh, let me add this new event that I worked on and the ROI that we had on that, right? So that also when and if it happens and you need to start looking, you're not starting on a blank slate, because like that's just so overwhelming, right? You know that you're already in a pretty good place, and it's just like, okay, now we're on to the next.
Yeah, I'd also recommend if you're in a position to give now, give. Because when that moment comes when you need something, you don't want it to feel transactional, like you're just reaching out because you need something. So big believer in just always providing value, no matter what your situation is.
Yeah. And people, like I said, remember when you're only calling with problems or only calling needing something, right? Are they going to do it? Yeah, probably they'll help you out, like out of the kindness of their heart. But if you've already been like just giving to your community, then when you turn around and ask for that help, people are going to be clamoring, and even when I was looking, or I told people like, okay, I'm thinking of going out freelance, they're like, oh my God, like here's who you should talk to, here's who, like, and people were like without even asking, we're trying to help, because I hope that like I've been helping them, or like that they know that I'm the person that can call when they're like, I saw you're connected to so-and-so and I'm applying for a job there, or whatever the case is.
For sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I feel like our industry is so valuable when it comes to building those connections because everyone is so welcoming like yourself. And having those connections, being able to just check in with people, help them out in a time of need, it really does go a long way. And it always shows itself when you least expect. At least it has for me. And to your point, Shanondoah, I've made it a point in my career to connect with all of the people that I work with along the way. Even if we've only been on a couple calls together, I'll go out of my way to connect with you on LinkedIn, like your post when you have a work anniversary, comment you on your next promotion. People appreciate those little things. And it reminds them of you, your personality, and who you are as a person. And I think that that goes a long way, especially in our industry as it relates to building the community. So shout out to you for dropping that line of keeping a bag packed, because I live that way. You always have to be ready. You should never get comfortable in that corporate bubble because you never know when things are going to shift, and that's going to drastically affect you. So keeping a bag packed is I love that line. I did want to circle back to your decision to go freelance. A lot of people, when they make these changes in their careers, they automatically assume that things are just going to go well, right? And sometimes it does when you do these things. But I would love to hear, what was your first event like as a freelancer? Was it successful? Was it a little like, oh my gosh, this was a lot? Walk us through what that was like, because I know a lot of us assume that things just go smooth sailing when you start a new venture.
I thought it's the opposite. Don't we all assume that like we're never going to make any money and we don't know like no one's ever going to call us? Why would anyone hire us even though we've been doing it for so long?
Kris is glass half full. Yeah.
I think for me, because even like having my podcast for so long and having my network and my LinkedIn be so strong before I went freelance, it was an easier transition because people already knew what I did. Like, it wasn't that like it's not like, oh, I've been working in events for 15 years and now today I'm promoting myself as a bookkeeper, right? And now everyone needs to relearn that that's what I do. I think people already being known for events was a huge thing. And like most of my early clients were, either former employers or people that I, word of mouth. Like almost all of my work, but actually all of my work comes from either word of mouth and a bit of LinkedIn. So I think, like I said, like kind of having that primed already. But I think going on site as a freelancer, like it felt very natural because it was still the same work. Like it was still the same run of show. It was still the same BEOs, right? Like all of the tools of the role were the same. There's some adjustments of like, okay, there's a different dynamic when you're on site with people that you work with every day versus the people that you work with just as a client. I actually think it's not easier, but it's when you're working in-house, like you have all these like relationships and expectations of like what your role is, and you're often playing double duty because you're doing like setup, but you're also trying to participate in the event. Whereas as a freelancer, it's like I'm coming in, I'm executing, and then I'm leaving, right? So I think like that, it was just like, oh, I know how to do this. And so it's just doing it from a different email address and like a different payment structure. But it's what I've been doing for so long that it wasn't like this big shock. It was a little more shocking that like, oh my God, someone like is going to hire me to do this without like working at a company. But the work itself was not different. So that felt so natural.
Yeah, I'm curious. As a freelancer now, I've run into, and I'm sure you have too, there's a lot of folks out there that think putting on an event is easy. I've seen sales leaders. I've seen sales leaders just like hand it to their admin and say, go make it happen. What do you wish those stakeholders understood about what good actually looks like, and how do you advocate for the craft without sounding defensive?
Yeah, I think I had a VP that I used to joke with him that I never used the term small events. They were events and bigger events.
Love that.
Because I think that when you call it a small event, there's this like perception that it's easy, but a small event still requires me to track all the shipping and book all the travel. Like there's still almost the same number of tasks associated with an event, no matter how small it is. I think it's a challenge in our industry that we aren't just seen as the frivolous nice to have. And I've worked in organizations where they've pulled back on events and then 6 months later are wondering why their pipeline is quiet. Yep. I think it's about really presenting yourself as strategists and like relying on data and relying on more than just the like photos and vibe, right? Like, I used to joke, like, you can't just plan on vibes. Like, you need a bit of vibes, but you also need some numbers to back it up. And I think it's like, I talk a lot about stakeholder management, and it's really understanding how do they communicate, right? Like, do they want a list of numbers, or if you send them a list of numbers, they're just tuning it out? Like, and they want to just know, like, what the client feedback is, or what the sales, like, what did we sell, right? Or how many people did we have versus last year?
Yep. So
I think that it's about constantly positioning ourselves as, advisors, as strategic advisors, and like, yes, talking about the logistics, but also like, what is the goal? And like always reminding people that like, there's a reason we're doing this that isn't just to spend a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And if you kind of keep reminding them that I'm aware of the goals and that's what I'm doing events for, like that's going to make a difference. I talked to someone a few months ago whose organization did this like expensive awards dinner every year that they had a hard time getting people to go to. It was very expensive because no one was seeing the value. And he said to me, he's like, well, no offense. Like, I just don't think that we should be doing events just to do them. I'm like, that's not offensive to me. I think it's offensive to do events just to do them, right? Like, if you're not providing value to your attendees, of course, they're not spending $500 to come to your event because you didn't tell them why. Or they've been in the past and didn't see the value. And so they're like, I'm going to spend my $500 somewhere else, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. You said something at the top I want to repeat because we beat that drum here a lot. There is no such thing as small events. There is a baseline of work that happens, whether it's 10 people or 10,000 people. And it's important to remember that we stopped using the word small here because it's just so misleading. There's no small budgets either. There's no small events, just small mindsets, I think. So
yeah,
very cool. Let's get to Clear Skies moment. You're obviously crushing it. You have your own podcast. You're succeeding as a freelancer, and now you're out there commenting on LinkedIn, getting into these Slack conversations, helping people out in the industry. And you came across my feed where we talked about the capacity, what we like to call the capacity lie. What do you see to that, and what resonated with you to make you say, like, I got to say something here?
Because it happened to me. I was working on an event in New Jersey, and our registrations were exceeding like our expectations. Great problem to have. And I was basing like, okay, well, the capacity chart says that it holds, I don't even remember what it was now, 100 people. And I'm like, okay, you take away I did the math. You take away 20 for some AV, like a little bit. And she's like, no, that's like completely wrong. I don't even know where they got that number from. I'm like, but it's your number, right? And so like, and I always say, like, make it easy for us. I see this also a lot especially with like private dining rooms and that side of the business of like venues that aren't a standard ballroom, right? Like a standard ballroom, like I said, I can look at a capacity chart and say, okay, it holds this in half rounds. Eliminate like 2 rows of that for a stage and like your AV table at the back and whatever else you want to do.
Yep.
But if I go onto your website and you promote private dining and you do not tell me how many people your private dining room holds, and like I'm not calling you. Like, I don't have time for this. Right? Like make it easy for everybody involved that I don't need to shortlist you, because if I'm looking for a space for 50 and you only hold 30, then I don't need to waste either of our times. Like, I don't understand why it behooves the venues to give us more information up front so that we're not wasting time. Like, no one has time to chase around on sales calls that are never going to happen, right? Like, help me help you.
I think it comes down to a lot of competing priorities. What I would think is the reason they want you to pick up the phone is they want to convert you into a lead. And then they want to be able to pursue you as a lead from a sales perspective. And then you're going to approach this from an experience perspective. And how do you reconcile those two things? And I think that's where the problem lies. A lot of venues are just looking to sell space, especially hotels. The more the better, because they care about room nights and F&B more than they do about meeting space. So how many people can we just squeeze in there, get in the contract and get in my guarantees? And that's at odds with the planner or the sourcing manager or the production company who's trying to put on a great event. So how do we get everybody on the same page around experience versus dollars?
Well, I think that comes to like having great partners that you work with, right? I just wrapped a program recently that was a very large program. They do it every year at the same venue because they have that trusted relationship. And again, like we kind of talked about earlier, like if I know that you're the venue that has my back when something goes wrong, when there's like an issue or we need to change because, oh my goodness, we had 30 extra people show up on site. What do we do? If you're that vendor, I'm going to call you over and over again. And and now especially one of the biggest shifts as a freelancer is that like when I worked in-house, I kind of planned the same events, dozens of events every single year. And we went to the same cities every single year and went to the same venues. But as a freelancer, like I'm talking to so many more people and sourcing so many different types of events that I think that the sales managers that get the long-term relationship will help you. And I know like there's a hotel in Orlando, there's a sales rep there who I've had multiple conversations with, and I've never booked his property. Either they didn't have the availability or the size wasn't right or something. And like every time I'm planning something in that city, I call him and say, hey, can you accommodate this? Because I know that in the past he's referred me to other properties that he said, oh, check with them. I know that they can accommodate you. Or, he just goes above and beyond like, oh, we can't help you. And so they're gone. So now I always think, oh, I'm doing a program in that city. I'm going to start there because it's not a sprint, right? It's a marathon. And like, if you think like, oh, she didn't book this time, so now like, especially in events, like I always come back around. Vendors might
We're not leaving
for like 2 or 3 years. I'm not leaving. Like 2 or 3 years later, I call and say, hey, remember me? Like I need this thing, and like I want to bring it to your venue. So I think the sales managers that get the relationship over the numbers, and I get, like you said, they're being told they have their quotas to hit.
Yep.
They like. Especially I found in the last few years, like ratios have been really enforced, which like 2018, 2019, like they were like, we have space, we have space. Whereas now I source things on like a short notice and they're like, oh, the ratio is not great. I'm like, how many people are calling you for an event in a month? Right. Like, but apparently they are. So I think it's like, again, back to those trusted people that get the long game, that are going to see the value in being strategically like solutions oriented, that it will come back to them.
Most definitely. You mentioned building the relationship with the sales team, and I've experienced that side too, where it's very transactional if you don't go that extra mile to build that trust, if you will. And it's hard to get the information out of these people that you typically need when you're planning an event, because you need to get to the yes and the no pretty fast. And sometimes they make that hard, right? So if you're open to sharing, how are you dealing with the capacity lie in your day-to-day? Every planner that we speak to, they have their own mental process, their own formula in their head, their own tool that they use. What is your process for figuring out if a space will work or not when you can't rely on the sales team to give you accurate data?
Yeah, I think it's, asking people, have you planned something here before? Right? Like even if I haven't, my team members maybe have, or other event people, the number of times, like there are people that I have, on messages that I'm like, have you done something here before? Like, oh, and they'll say, oh yeah, but don't forget that the loading dock is a whole issue. And like, we're a close industry, right? So I think, some of it comes with experience. Some of it comes from like looking at a room and saying, but like you have these 3 giant pillars. Like obviously you're going to lose all those tables. And like,
What pillars?
there's just those things that you get to. Yeah. Yeah. Pillars that weren't on the floor plan. Right. I think it's kind of relying on people or saying like, show me setups that you've done, like show me photos. And maybe that's with the AV team. I've had that so many times where I'm like, this is what we're trying to do, or this is what you're telling me we should do. Give me a picture. Like, if you've done it, show me. Like, show me what it looks like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Kris, let's do lightning round. Shanondoah, just some quick questions, quick answers, sort of fun, silly, on point. But I guess my first one would be, what's the oddest thing that's in your bag when you go to an event?
Peppermint foot spray.
Oh, why?
Oh, wow.
Because it's like good for like your swollen feet. I mean, also helps smelly feet, but it's like it has a cooling effect. And so like when you've been on your feet for 100 hours, like it's quite nice.
I've never heard that one. That's great.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that, but I could see.
I just ran it on my last program and I will be rebuying. So it's basically essential. It's just peppermint oil in a spray form. So
Sweet.
highly recommend.
That's a good one. So JR and I, we've been on this topic for about the last week and doing a deep dive into it. We've been talking about overspend as it relates to event budget. So if there's one thing that you can identify in your experience that you've seen customers overspend, or part of the budget just goes to this particular thing and they could save that money if they just had a right decision, what is that one thing that you would say most customers overspend on in your experience?
I'd say it's like anything that you're not making decisions on quickly. Print will cost you twice as much if you wait until the last minute. If you're, I've paid exorbitant amounts of money because we needed something printed last minute. It usually falls on print because that's usually the thing that like takes the team so long and in delays and whatever. But I think like the opportunity cost of not making decisions and just thinking, well, we'll get it done. Like, what's the cost of me? I used to say like, I'll get it done. I'll get it printed. I'll get it shipped, but your shipping's going to cost you twice as much, right? Like there's no room for negotiation when you don't give me time to negotiate.
Yeah.
Are you a reader? Do you read?
Yeah.
Do you have a book you'd recommend to folks new in the industry as a must read?
Yeah. I laugh because I've read 25 books this year and
oh my God,
none of them are.
It's not even March.
And none of them are actually like 3 of them maybe like make you think, but the rest do not make you think.
Sure.
But for professionals, The Art of Gathering by Priya Parker is a must-meet read, and Unreasonable Hospitality is also a must-read. But if you follow me on Goodreads, I'm not responsible for the choices you make after that.
Oh, so. I might track you down to pull back that curtain.
I like it. So being an event planner for 15 plus years means you're well traveled. We're going to make that assumption. So we like to do a segment where we talk about travel tips. So it could be on the plane, it could be in the airport, it could be calling an Uber. What are your top 3 travel tips for planners?
Top 3 travel tips. Yeah, I do not subscribe to the airport theory that the plane will wait for you. Like, I show up with a respectable amount of time. You will not see me running. So like, just like set yourself up for success and not to be sweaty, and just like get there early, read a book. I do have many recommendations. And relax. I think, it's so much of it is just attitude, right? Growing up, my mom, we would travel and like, she would say like, stuff happens when you travel and like, you just have to pack your patience and just kind of give over to like, this is probably going to be annoying, and people are going to be annoying, and things are going to be annoying. And I think it's just like if you just kind of let it go, and the let them theory of travel of like, let them be crazy, let it be delayed, like I'm gonna get where I need to go. And then I think it's just like, I know some people like are really great about packing things from home and being really like diligent. Like I have a friend who brings photos when she travels, and like I'm like, oh, that's so impressive, right? But I don't know that I have great travel tips. Like I do it a lot, but it's just like figure out your points and and pack your patience.
Get it done. I assume you're reading on the plane. You're a reader. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so I was just like, I flew to Florida this past week, and I read at least 2 books plus an audiobook, but 1.5 audiobooks. One of them was really short. So like, I am a plane reader. I'm like resisting technology and almost never turn on my Wi-Fi on a flight. Nice. Like to me, there's something still magical about being unreachable for a couple of hours. Like I get like, if you're like in the thick of it, maybe you have to, but there's just something nice about my phone not dinging for a couple of hours and reading my book. And it's just me and my Kobo.
In-flight Wi-Fi is the worst thing to happen to business travel. My goodness.
Like, I don't know. Like we took this magical thing and then like made it less magical. And so like now I feel like it's like this pressure that like, oh, I get so much work done on the plane. I'm like, I don't.
No, that's Zen time. That's preparation time. We like to close every episode with the question, if you could provide one piece of advice to someone new in the industry, what would that advice be?
My piece of advice that I refer back to is a Lorne Michaels quote. So the guy who started SNL says that the show does not start because it's ready. It starts because it's 11:30. Yeah. And sometimes that's just the reality of events of, is it ready? Nope. But those doors are going to open. And so we have to figure out what that's going to look like when the doors open.
Mic drop. Shanondoah, this is amazing. I'd love to pick your brain for hours, so we'll have to connect offline. But thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It was a great time.
Awesome. You broke a rule.
I know. Don't do that. Don't do that. But Shanondoah is great. I could talk to her all day. She's a wealth of knowledge as it relates to the events industry and just building relationships and resiliency. Nice to have her on today.
So many of these podcasts come down to people. And I think when you meet the right people and they have the right attitudes like Shanondoah does, you can go a lot of places in this world. So continue to build your network, and don't just build it for the sake of building it. Don't just put that number next to your LinkedIn profile. Actually make it valuable. And I think that's what we could all take away from Shanondoah today.
Yeah. Be purposeful and keep a bag packed.
Heck yeah.
Until next time.
They said it holds 130, so we signed the line. Then reality showed up right on showtime. No aisles, no access, no place for tech. Just chairs on chairs on chairs, and everyone's mad at me. The plan is not wrong for trust in what they see. The failure is calling a theory. Ready? Ooh. Give me room, truth, not a number that sells. Give me a diagram, give me where the story lies. Standards and solutions, that's how trust gets kept. And while I'm building the show, yeah, I keep my bag packed. Freelance email, same work, different day. I'm not chasing ghosts, I just need it straight. If you've done the setup, show me the photo proof. If you want the long game, make it easy to choose. The show doesn't start because it's ready, it starts.